The patient ship. The ISS Ironback drifted through formation at a pace that invited commentary. Captain Yemi Abara stood on the bridge with his hands clasped behind his back, his expression composed, while the open communication channel delivered its steady stream of observations from the sleeper vessels passing on either side. "Is that thing towing an asteroid?" A voice with a sharp, clicking accent. No, the asteroid is towing it." More laughter. Abara did not respond. He watched the view screen as a squadron of Sarathi interceptors curved past his ship in elegant formation, their silver hulls catching starlight, their speed making the Ironback look like a planet orbiting a very small sun. "Communications, mute the open channel, please," he said. Lieutenant Commander Osei tapped her console, and the voices disappeared. Abara turned to his first officer, Commander Priya Desh. "How's the crew?" She met his eyes. "Maintaining professionalism, but today's speed trials were hard on morale, the engineering team especially. They know what the main reactor could do if it was configured differently. Which is exactly why it isn't." Abara straightened. "Department heads in the war room in 20 minutes. It's time for a reminder about what this ship actually is." Fleet Admiral Saren of the Sarathi Compact watched the human vessel from the bridge of his flagship, the Precision Strike, and felt the comfortable warmth of confirmed assumptions. He had known before today's exercises even began that the humans were an earnest but limited species, capable enough, well-intentioned, but clearly not built for serious military partnership. The Ironback was proof, enormous, slow, angular, a vessel that seemed designed by committee members who had never agreed on anything. "Send a message to their captain," Saren told his aide. "Captain, what was his name?" "Abara, Admiral." "Captain Abara, invite him to dinner aboard the Precision Strike tonight. I want to see the kind of officer who commands a flying warehouse." In the war room of the Ironback, Abara looked at the faces of the only people aboard who knew the complete truth about the ship they were serving on. Chief Engineer Fatima Okonkwo, her hands perpetually stained with lubricant. Weapons Officer Commander Soo-Jin Park. Navigation Officer Hiroshi Tanaka. Medical Officer Dr. Lena Vasquez. Science Officer Dr. Kwame Mensah. I know today was difficult. The Alliance speed trials are designed to test our ships in a variety of scenarios. Today's tests were not our tests. "Humiliating is the honest word, sir," Okonkwo said. "My engineers know what we could do with that reactor output if we redirected it." "Which is precisely the point," Abara said. He brought up a holographic schematic on the table, detailed, annotated, showing systems that appeared on no official blueprint shared with Alliance Command. Every major species in the Galactic Alliance has spent the last century building faster ships. Earth looked at that trend and asked a different question. Not how fast can we go, but what happens if speed stops mattering. Commander Park nodded slowly. Because every doctrine in the Alliance is built around velocity. Speed of attack, speed of retreat, speed of repositioning. And no one, Abara said, has seriously considered what happens when an enemy can neutralize that advantage entirely. A message alert sounded on Osei's tablet. She glanced at it. "Admiral Saren has invited you to dinner on his flagship, sir." Abara considered this for a moment. "Accept it." The Precision Strike was everything the Ironback was not. Aerodynamic even in the vacuum of space, which served no aerodynamic purpose, but communicated something important about Sarathi values. Abara felt every eye on him as he was escorted through its corridors, the quiet, contained amusement of a crew that had already decided what category he belonged in. Admiral Saren greeted him in the dining room with formal Sarathi courtesy. He was tall, silver-skinned, with the particular posture of someone accustomed to being the most capable person in the room. "Captain Abara, welcome. I trust the shuttle ride wasn't taxing." Abara caught the implication and smiled pleasantly. "Not at all, Admiral. Thank you for the invitation." The dining room's large windows showed stars moving past at speed as the precision strike maintained its patrol course. In the distance, the Ironback was visible, appearing from here to be standing still. A striking contrast, Saren said, following Abara's gaze. It is. Tell me, Captain, why does Earth persist with vessels of this type? Surely your engineers have seen that modern space combat rewards speed and maneuverability above all other qualities. Abara took a measured sip of water before answering. Every civilization approaches problems differently, Admiral. Humans have a saying, slow and steady wins the race. Saren's smile was diplomatic but unconvinced. Charming, though I wonder how applicable it is to actual warfare. History will clarify that, Abara said simply. Saren leaned forward slightly, abandoning some of his social polish. Captain, I say this as an ally. In genuine combat, the Ironback would be a liability, too slow to evade, too large to conceal. Your own crew must feel the weight of that. Different tools serve different functions, Abara said. And what function does a ship that cannot maneuver serve? The Alliance Command Center felt different with genuine crisis in the room. 12 species represented around the strategic table, all watching red indicators spread across the star map like ink in water. Admiral Saren stood at the center of the bridge. The Velox battle group leads the primary assault. Trebian cruisers form the second wave. He paused at the human marker. Captain Abara, the Ironback will take the rear guard position, long-range support fire. Stay back from the engagement zone. Around the table, other commanders nodded. It was logical. Put the fast ships where speed mattered. Abara said nothing. After the session, General Thorne, Earth's senior military liaison to the Alliance, found him in the corridor. I know what you're thinking, Yemi, Abara said quietly. These ships move in ways that don't follow standard physics. The footage from the outpost shows space-time distortion around their hulls. If I'm right about what that means, Earth Command's orders are clear. Observe. Do not engage unless directly attacked. We don't reveal our hand in the first round. Back aboard the Ironback, Abara gathered his senior officers. Official orders. Defensive position at these coordinates, far from the engagement zone. Long-range support fire. He pointed to the star map. We'll comply with the positioning and use the time to analyze the enemy before the main fleet makes contact. To Mensa, what do you have so far? The enemy ships, the Alliance is calling them the Swarm, are generating localized space-time distortions, Mensa said, pulling up the sensor data from the outpost footage. The distortions appear approximately 15 to 20 meters ahead of each vessel. They're not moving through space faster, they're compressing the space in front of them and expanding it behind them. Standard propulsion physics doesn't apply. Good. Keep analyzing. I want a full assessment before the fleet makes contact. The precision strike led 50 Sarathi warships in perfect formation, their silver hulls cutting through space with the grace that was their civilization's great pride. Admiral Saren stood at the center of his bridge, confident in the doctrine that had never failed his people. Their movement patterns are unusual, his tactical officer noted, studying the incoming data. No matter, nothing outruns our targeting systems. On the Ironback, Abara watched the tactical feed closely. They're moving into standard attack formation, Desh observed. Wide firing line. And the swarm is maintaining their scattered pattern, no apparent coordination. But, he stopped. Mensa, those energy pulses?
Increasing intensity, Mensa confirmed. Space-time distortions across the entire swarm fleet, building simultaneously. I think they're... The swarm moved. The scattered ships converged in an instant, not flying together, but arriving together, as though space had simply rearranged to put them where they needed to be. They punched through the center of the Sarathi formation before a single targeting system could lock on, and then they were everywhere at once, surrounding Sauron's flagship with a fluid, impossible speed that no doctrine had prepared anyone to counter. "My God," Ose whispered from the communication station. "Precision strike shields down to 38%. Dash reported, reading the tactical feed. "The fleet is breaking formation. Swarm is hitting them from every vector simultaneously." Abara stood. "Navigation. Intercept course, full available power to forward shields." Dash looked up. "Sir, our orders?" "I know our orders, Commander. I'm not leaving good people to die when we can help. Communications. Inform General Thorne we're moving to assist." Admiral Sauron gripped his command chair as the precision strike shuddered under another coordinated strike. His evasive maneuvers, which had never failed in 40 years of command, were accomplishing nothing. The swarm ships moved as though they already knew where he was going to be. "Shields at 22%, his tactical officer said, voice tight. "Sir," the communications officer looked up. "The human ship, the Ironback, it's broken formation and is heading toward us." Sauron stared. "At their speed, they won't arrive in time to matter." But the Ironback was already doing something. A barely visible ripple spread from the human vessel, expanding outward through space like a slow shockwave, invisible except for the faintest distortion at its edges. When the wave reached the battle zone, the swarm ships lurched. Their impossible fluid movements stuttered. Their instant direction changes slowed to something a targeting system could actually track. They were still fast, faster than most ships in the Alliance fleet, but they were no longer impossible. "What just happened?" Sauron demanded. His science officer was staring at the readings. "The space-time distortions around the swarm vessels, they've been normalized. Something is canceling their propulsion advantage." Sauron opened a channel to the Ironback. "Captain Abara, what did you do?" Abara's voice came back calm. "I'll explain later, Admiral. Right now, you need to get your ships into a defensive formation and hit them while they're slowed. The effect isn't permanent." 12 swarm ships broke from the main engagement and turned toward the Ironback, clearly identifying the source of the affecting their fleet. "12 incoming," Dash reported. "As expected," Abara said. "Banks, time to demonstrate the second reason the Ironback was built the way it was. Prepare all shield layers." The swarm ships hit them with everything they had. The Ironback shuddered. Not badly. Its layered defensive architecture, outer layer absorbing initial impact, intermediate layer dissipating energy, inner barrier preventing bleed-through, performed exactly as designed. The ship that looked like a liability absorbed concentrated fire from 12 vessels and held. "Shields at 78%, Park reported, outer layer taking the brunt, interior systems nominal." The swarm ships circled, probing. Their weapons shifted angle and frequency, searching for a weakness that wasn't there. Sauron, watching from the precision strike, opened a channel. "Captain Walker, your ship is pulling their attention from my fleet. Whatever you're doing to them, keep doing it." "That's the plan, Admiral." Abara turned to Park. "Quantum lock torpedoes, 4 targets, fire when ready." The torpedoes launched, slower than most shipboard weapons, and the swarm ships dodged them easily, or would have if they were conventional projectiles. The moment the torpedoes launched, quantum connections formed between each one and its designated target, links that existed independent of physical distance or trajectory. The torpedoes did not need to catch the swarm ships, they were already connected to them. 4 swarm ships detonated simultaneously, their hulls rupturing from within as the quantum effect bypassed shielding entirely. The remaining swarm ships targeting the Ironback broke off, pulling back to a distance, reassessing. "They're recalculating," Desh observed, "sharing data between themselves. The communication pattern suggests they're integrating what they just learned." "Good," Abara said. "Good, sir?" "They're focusing on what they know about us, the spatial anchor, the defensive architecture, the quantum torpedoes." He stood and walked to the tactical display, studying the disposition of the full swarm fleet. "They're building a model of this ship based on what they've seen." "And?" asked Park. "And the model will be wrong." He crossed to a secured console at the rear of the bridge, placed his palm on the scanner, and watched a concealed panel slide open. Behind it, a single activation control protected by a clear cover. Chief Engineer Okonkwo, begin power transfer to the core system. Okonkwo's voice came from engineering, quieter than usual. Captain, once the core activates, there's no quick reversal. Power draw will reduce all other systems to minimal function. I know. The power requirements. I know, Fatima. He flipped the cover open. But if we don't use it now, there may not be a later opportunity. He pressed the control. Deep within the Ironback, something that had been waiting for 3 years of deployment finally woke up. A low harmonic built through the deck plates. Not a vibration exactly, more like the ship finding a frequency it had always been meant to produce. Core activation at 30%, Okonkwo reported, all conduits holding. Status of the main swarm fleet. 41 vessels breaking away from the Alliance engagement and heading toward us. Estimated arrival 17 minutes. And Saren's forces? Regrouped behind our spatial anchor field. Admiral Saren confirms he'll coordinate with us on arrival. Core at 50%, Okonkwo said. Reality field generators coming online. Abara opened a channel to Saren. Admiral, in approximately 9 minutes, the Ironback will activate its primary system. When that happens, I need your fleet at these coordinates. He transmitted the positioning data. And I need your word that what you observed today remains classified at the highest level. Saren paused only briefly. You have it, Captain. On my honor. When the core activates, there will be a visible distortion around this ship. Do not enter that distortion under any circumstances. Understood. And then? Then the swarm makes the same mistake everyone has made today, Abara said. They focus on what they can see. The swarm commander processed incoming data from its distributed network of vessels and calculated an outcome with high confidence. The human ship had revealed 3 capabilities: spatial normalization field, extreme defensive architecture, quantum-linked weapons with limited ammunition. All 3 had been analyzed. Compensatory algorithms were being distributed across the fleet. Victory probability remained high. What the commander could not account for was information it did not have. Core at 90%, Okonkwo reported. Final calibrations in progress. All hands secure for core activation. We've trained for this. Trust your equipment and your training. The swarm fleet arrived in a sphere, surrounding the Ironback in 3 dimensions, covering every angle simultaneously, preparing to engage all known defensive capabilities at once. Swarm ships opening fire, all vectors simultaneously. Shields holding at 84%, Desh reported. They're probing for saturation points. Abara watched the numbers, waited until the entire swarm fleet had fully committed to the engagement pattern. Okonkwo, activate the reality core. The chief engineer entered her authorization sequence. Space around the Ironback rippled. Not like a shockwave, not like a weapon discharge, like the surface of water when something large and fundamental shifts beneath it.
The distortion expanded outward in a perfect sphere, and the swarm vessels caught within it stopped. Not slowed, stopped, suspended in their attack trajectories as though time itself had paused. Their drives still fired, their weapons still charged, but the physics governing velocity within the field had been rewritten, and the swarm ship's movement algorithms were calculating within a reality that no longer applied. Reality field stable, Mensa said, his voice hushed. Localized spacetime manipulation achieved. The core isn't affecting them externally, it's changing the rules inside the field. Their engines are working perfectly. There's just nowhere for the velocity to go. Phase shift, Abara said. Okonkwo adjusted the field's properties. The trapped swarm vessels began to drift, slowly, helplessly, their propulsion generating movement in directions that the altered physics of the field translated into gentle sideways drift rather than forward thrust. Fire remaining quantum torpedoes, Abara said. All available targets. 6 more detonations lit the field like brief internal stars. Signal Admiral Saren. Tell him to begin the attack pattern. The Alliance fleet moved in on the disoriented swarm vessels, methodical, coordinated, working through the immobilized targets with the precision that Sarathi doctrine was genuinely excellent at when the targets were actually holding still. Sir,
Okonkwo's voice came over the comm, lower now. Power consumption is exceeding model projections. The swarm is generating counter-resonance. It's accelerating containment degradation. How long can we hold the field? 14 minutes, maybe less if the resonance increases. Abara opened a channel to Saren. Admiral, we can hold the field for approximately 14 minutes. After shutdown, there will be an energy discharge. Your ships need to be 50,000 kilometers clear when that happens. Saren's expression shifted. That's significant. Will your crew? We've prepared for this, Abara said. He had, though never at full scale, in live combat conditions against an opponent actively fighting the system. But there was no useful purpose in mentioning that. From the tactical display, he watched 8 swarm vessels that had been outside the field's initial radius change course and accelerate toward the Ironback, having identified the source of the problem with exactly the adaptive intelligence that made the swarms so dangerous. 8 incoming, direct intercept. Shields at 43%, Park reported. If all 8 concentrate fire, point defense systems target everything in range, Abara said. We hold long enough for Saren's fleet to finish. The precision strike and its companions were already pivoting. Saren's voice came over the channel. All vessels, break current engagement, protect the human ship, execute. The Sarathi fleet that had spent the day demonstrating its speed advantage now used that speed for something entirely different, racing to cover a slow, battered ship that changed the outcome of the entire engagement. The core shutdown when it came was controlled, barely. Okonkwo and her team walked the system down across 11 minutes of careful power reduction, managing the field collapse within acceptable parameters, while the Ironback's shields absorbed the last of the swarm's coordinated fire. The energy discharge at shutdown was significant. Every ship in the Alliance fleet that had followed Abara's positioning instructions cleared the radius in time. When the bridge lights stabilized and the damage reports began flowing in, Abara ran through the list methodically. Minor injuries across multiple decks. Hull breach on one section sealed by emergency fields. Engineering systems stressed but intact. No fatalities. The swarm vessels that had been trapped in the field were completely disabled, their propulsion systems unable to recalibrate from the altered physics they had been operating in. The remaining active swarm ships had broken off engagement entirely. It's over, Desh said quietly. The cheer from the bridge crew was brief, self-conscious, quickly returned to professional composure. Abara allowed himself a small exhale that wouldn't have been legible as relief to anyone watching. Saren's face appeared on the screen, silver skin marked with what appeared to be residue from a console discharge. Captain Abara, he paused, it seems your slow ship has saved us. Sometimes, Admiral, the race goes not to the swift. 3 days later, the Ironback completed its docking approach at the main Alliance station, a maneuver that took considerably longer than every other vessel's equivalent. Abara was still on the bridge when Desh said, "Sir, look at the platforms." The viewing platforms along the docking corridor were lined with personnel, Sarathi, Tribine, a dozen other species, standing in something that looked, across the cultural translation, like respectful attention. Admiral Saren was waiting when Abara disembarked. He extended his hand in the human gesture he had clearly practiced. "I once called your ship a flying warehouse," Saren said. "I was mistaken." Abara shook his hand. "The mistake was understandable. We worked hard to make it look like one." He glanced back at the Ironback completing its final docking locks. "We have an old story on Earth about a race between a fast animal and a slow one. Everyone assumed the outcome before it started." "I've read it," Saren said. "I've been studying your Earth fables since the battle. There is more practical wisdom in them than I initially credited." Behind them, engineers and scientists from a dozen species were already gathering around the damaged hull of the Ironback, requesting access, comparing notes, asking questions that their own doctrines had never prompted them to ask. The slowest ship in the Alliance fleet, mocked, underestimated, assigned to guard retreat paths, had become the most studied vessel in the combined fleet. Not because it had finally proven itself fast, because it had demonstrated something that speed, for all its elegance, could never accomplish on its own. Sometimes the most powerful thing a ship can do is change what the word powerful means.